Let's start at the start, Brad, at the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Masterton. So I'm actually adopted out of a family in Masterton. And my parents, they're in Christchurch. So I was born there. Then we moved around New Zealand a wee bit and ended up settling and had my childhood in Christchurch.
Yeah, cool. And did you go to uni?
So I tried to be an Air Force pilot to start with right out of high school. Found out I wasn't coordinated enough to do that, which is a wee bit ironic considering my story.
Yeah.
Tried Canterbury Uni. They cut my degree program, so I was forced to go down to Otago. I did my undergrad in science, so I did microbiology and pharmacology, which I never used a day after I graduated.
How did you find that experience? Was it enjoyable? Was it hard? Was it easy? What was it like?
It was sort of finding my own feet. I probably went to uni for all the wrong reasons. I went because my parents thought it was a good idea for education, and I did it because other people were sort of going to uni, not really a core desire of myself, but knew that I was very halfway in and about 70K in student debt, so it's probably a good idea to finish it.
Yeah. Were you into the party drinking scene or not really?
Not really. I
No.
get dragged along. I was in the territorial, the part-time army whilst at uni. So anytime there was uni holidays, I was up to Waiouru.
Oh, yeah.
In the oasis of Waiouru.
Yeah, right.
doing the army thing.
Wow.
So it was a wee bit of dichotomy of learning science and then out with a backpack on your back and doing 20, 30 kilometre walks and just learning how to be a soldier, which is great.
Wow. And so what happened after uni? Did you go into the army full time?
Yeah, so halfway through my sort of uni experience, I got an opportunity to deploy to the Solomon Islands, so on a peacekeeping mission. Actually, I made the bad decision to try and keep studying whilst being deployed overseas, which was silly. But being deployed over there and helping their sort of civil or tribal war was a really life-changing experience. I was 21 at the time, and we just got to see a completely different aspect of the world. Some of the tribes only stopped human sacrifice in the 70s and 80s.
Wow.
So you're going in as the first sort of like light-skinned person that's seen in 20 years.
Wow.
So you can imagine it's a very unique experience.
Wow.
To do that. Yeah.
Crazy. I don't even know where the Solomon Islands are.
So they're sort of like northeast of Australia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow. And what happened with the conflict in the end, did it?
So it was between sort of two tribes. So one side was called the Malaitans, and they were really hard workers, and they came across to Guadalcanal and got all the jobs. And then essentially there's a big conflict between the two islands, and one island sort of slaughtered the other. And then the peacekeepers were brought in to make sure that things were okay for an extended period of time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow. Was it a dangerous environment for you guys, or was it?
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, mate, to be honest.
Pretty hectic.
Yeah, we got there where there was rules put in other countries. So we had the Fijians and the Australians. So we were the only ones able to travel into the very, very remote islands. So we would go probably about 4 weeks where it would be just 9 of us in a very, very far away island, experiencing some really interesting things.
Man,
Yeah.
what an experience.
Yeah, very, very different, especially when you're so young. You've got a really tight-knit group of people that you're still in contact with today.
Yeah, right. And then what happened after that phase of your life? Did you come back to New Zealand?
Came back,
and
tried to
deploy?
continue uni. I had malaria, which I didn't know of, during my exam sort of season, and then failed all my exams with my malaria, got better, finished uni, and then the Christchurch earthquake sort of happened. So I was on the PGC building the night of the earthquakes, which is pretty horrible, yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow. And then what happened after then? Did you go to the States after then?
No, so I was involved in American football pretty early on, and I went over to, not the continental States, went over to Hawaii, played a bit of American football and got the bug. Came back, entered into the regular force of the Army. That's where I was lecturing anatomy and physiology on behalf of AUT for the military medics.
Oh.
So I did that for about 3 years, and that was really, really cool, actually. The military medics do a really good job in the most craziest conditions you can absolutely imagine. And then did that for 3 years, wasn't happy where I was, and I took a whole year off American football and trained my ass off to try it for the SAS. And that's supposed to be like a 7 to 10 day course, and I lasted 3 hours. And I got my ass and absolutely handed to me.
Yeah, right.
And it was for the first time ever that I realized like my brain and body wasn't connected.
Right.
Because like I failed on pull-ups of all things.
Right.
Like trained for a whole year, could smash out 20 pull-ups, And I was so overwhelmed by the experience that when I went to hang off the bar, I couldn't even do 4.
Wow.
And I was like absolutely crushed after that.
Holy shit.
And then, so that's when I started to pick things up and I decided I want to take this American football thing seriously. And I just ended relationships, ended leases, and just went overseas.
Yeah. And spent how long in Hawaii?
So Hawaii was quite a short term. So there's like a 3-monther where
yeah.
you go in, you learn about it, you play some games. When I left the military, I went over to Australia. So I had met some people on my travels in Hawaii over in Melbourne. So I played a season in Melbourne, played a season in the Gold Coast. So they have different seasons. And then got scouted to come play in Germany professionally.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, you've done some stuff.
Some weird stuff, mate.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just some really, really odd. There's no sort of direct career path.
No.
If that makes sense. So I got to go across to Germany. So Germany's about 600,000, Dresden, where I played, is about 600,000 for the population. And American football is their summer sport. So it's sort of like Super Rugby here. So we'd fill out, 30, 40,000 people stadiums. When we go to away games, we'd have 3 or 4 buses of our fans follow us wherever we go.
Wow.
And you'd be recognised sort of in the street.
Yeah, right.
Which is super, super odd.
Crazy.
But a kind of a cool experience too.
What would be the other main sport there? Soccer?
Soccer in the winter, and then ice hockey's getting a lot of interest.
Yeah, right. Okay. So how long in Dresden?
So I did about 9 months, but I sort of saw the downside of how you can feel like a wee bit like a meat market over as a player. We had 4 guys who had played in the NFL, like in America, across in our team, and it was probably we were the 4th best team in all of Europe. So a really, really high standard. But like the reason why I sort of left American football professionally is I got hit in the back of the head during a game and got knocked out so bad that I didn't even know who I was for 48 hours.
Jeepers.
But I was still made to go and do we had promo and sponsor stuff. So I got knocked out during a game at say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but I was still at the club doing promo and signing autographs and shaking hands at 10 p.m. that night.
Man.
And made to sort of go through and you as a person wasn't looked after. You were more as a sort of an asset to be squeezed and used.
Yeah, right.
And we had another experience. I had a flatmate, a guy called Quaid. He tackled someone and tore his pec and his bicep off. But the team doctor said, no, you're all good for the next week's game. It's all in your head. But it's because next week's game was a semi-final. So you just sort of start to learn a wee bit of the downsides.
Right, you're a commodity.
You're 100%, mate.
Yeah.
And the more unique you can be, like me being a Kiwi playing American football in Germany, I was like a little shiny thing. That wasn't a typical path there. So you just got to realise that you might be a little shiny thing, but you're out in front with the brand trying to grow more ticket sales. Yeah.
Crazy. And then what? And then what happened after Germany?
Came back to Australia for another season in the Gold Coast. And then started talking to a few of my friends back in Christchurch they actually grew up with, talking about one of them, a guy called Dan, Superman Dan from the gym.
Oh, yeah.
You know Dan Thompson?
Yeah.
Talking about his business and how well that was going and how he was traveling the world doing that. And then sort of got the idea to start a business. Had no idea if I was going to come back to Christchurch what I'd do. Obviously, sitting in a lab didn't sound very appealing. No. So decided to come back, and I had a good friend that I sat with as a 13-year-old in high school, Paul, that I'd known a very, very long time. He was in the real estate game at the time, and we put our heads together and came up with a business idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys were just like friends. You'd stayed in touch throughout the various things that you were both doing, and you're like, we're going to do a business.
Yeah, it was sort of like our mate Dan really influenced us, and he did a really good job of his business. And we're like, okay, we have this idea.
Yeah.
We have this really small idea to start with. We had no idea where it was going to go, but we thought, let's just give it a go and see what happens.
I like the attitude.
Yeah, it's a case of you can sit there and research things until it's you over-engineer your answers.
Yes.
Or you can go to the market, get punched in the face, and then know how to pivot.
Yeah, you find out pretty quick, right?
Oh, mate, you do. and you get humbled so quickly that it's actually really good for you.
Yes.
Because especially as me as a young man, having a little bit of success but having some really big failures, you think you're invincible and you think that your ideas are perfect.
Yeah.
And then when you're dealing with billion-dollar companies, sometimes they reorientate your attitude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the value in just talking to people, finding out from real-world potential customers.
Yeah, or just going, hey, look, I wanted this service for free. It's my first time.
Yeah.
and I'm going to do it for free because I want your feedback and your honest feedback.
100%.
And that way you find out really quickly if your idea is going to work or not.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people put up, or they see what other people charge and they say, with zero experience or never done a job, hey, I should charge heaps of money. And then they sit there like a little spinning top.
Floundering.
Nothing really happens.
No, that's right.
So, I always think, do it for free, do it cheap to start with, get feedback, understand where the pain points are, how to improve, and then you can start to ramp the team, ramp the prices.
Yeah. It's such a simple model, right? Start free, increase pricing, build credibility, build reps.
I think
get feedback.
Action matters and speed matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to do.
Yeah, agreed.
It's the easiest way to sort of think through it.
In that business, senior move managers?
Yeah, so we started in Christchurch. Originally, it was sort of the idea came from like a personal experience that both Paul and I had about families, and then moving people into retirement villages. Families get really involved, and there's quite a lot of stress. So it was a third party coming in to pack up their belongings, move them into a retirement village, unpack everything, make their bed, put a cup of tea on, go back to the old house, clear away their rubbish, and clean the house. The idea of just it being done and the families can concentrate on the appearance as opposed to the process and reduce the stress, that was sort of the big appeal for everyone. So I started in Christchurch, it was going well. I moved up to Auckland to start the offices up there. Me and my partner, actually take a step back. So I found my partner in Germany, but in quite an ironic way. I'm a little bit of a smartass. So
no, I haven't noticed that.
No, never. So I was featured in a magazine in Germany, and I said to the editor, who spoke really good English because my German's pretty bad, should we have a little bit of fun with this? And I said, should we write an article about how I love German women and would love to bring a wife back to New Zealand? I completely taken the piss. And the irony of it is I brought a German lass back.
So that joke
turned into reality, eh?
Wow.
So, yeah, which is pretty funny. So she left her job in Christchurch, everything, to move up to Auckland, and we lived above our offices in like a 40 square metre apartment above our warehouse for the next 3 years. And then from that, with the opportunity to get quite a large contract where all good retirement villages, when someone buys a unit, we come for free or complimentary.
Right.
So everyone gets the same service, everyone's delivered in the same way, and the retirement village picks up the tab for our bill at a flat rate.
Yeah.
And then we were able to scale quite quickly, so up to about sort of like 40 staff before the first COVID lockdowns. But sort of fate would have it that my degree in microbiology and pharmacology would come back in handy, because we wrote all of the COVID protocols for the retirement villages. So when we saw COVID coming, we were like, well, we have no idea what this is going to mean. How about we just give all the stuff to the villages because they're floundering? And we gave them all the COVID protocols, and then we were deemed as an essential service. So we were able to help a lot of people that needed the care and to me to be moving to a retirement village during the first lockdown. But it was probably one of the most hardest times of my life for sure, just with the stress of not knowing what's going on, but also we're dressed up pretty much in all plastic, trying to lift furniture and trying to move things and trying to console people during a really stressful time whilst they're moving home.
Yeah, wow. And so were you operating in any other cities at that time, or was it Auckland and Christchurch?
So it was Christchurch, Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga,
a
little bit of Hawke's Bay then.
Yeah, gotcha.
First COVID.
Yeah, so made it through the first COVID, made it through the second COVID.
Yeah, well, the second COVID, we were 96 staff during the Omicron wave, so we went from about 40 to 96 in less than a year. And that was just because the insane need. I don't think people really realise how isolating it was for old people if you're locked in at home, and they understood they didn't want to go through another lockdown by themselves, and there's just a mass flood of people into retirement villages, so they got safety and security because they operated as one big bubble.
Right, yeah.
Because the social aspect is so important. If you look back on that movie that was COVID, 4 or 5 years ago now, that social aspect was the most important part for people.
Totally. Quite a niche offering. Are there and were there other competitors at that time?
Not really for what we do. There's the 1 and 2 man bands that are out there to help, but nothing on the, not to say industrial scale, but on the larger scale that we were doing. We're at 11 different locations from Queenstown to Kerikeri now. Yeah.
And this is a great story, and I love this transition or like a lot of businesses are created or started from a pain point, right? And so this is the entrance into AI, right?
It is, yeah. So during the Omicron wave, March is the busiest time for retirement village groups. We had, of our 96 staff, we had 30 on that 2-week stand down. I had 30 jobs I had no staff for, and it cost me over 30 grand to fly people around to get those jobs done. We were offering over 6 figures to pack a box and drive a truck.
Wow.
And no one was interested in those roles. And for that was probably like the big shock to me was, how am I going to grow the business? Like, I'm absolutely stuffed. So we had to start to use AI to make our head office a lot more streamlined, to be a lot more efficient, so we could take that money from our head office that we would pay more staff and give it to the guys and girls on the ground, or in different ways, or different sort of rewards or overnight fees and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where the desire for AI sort of came. And we then started to really just push and trying to learn as quickly as possible to see where it could just amplify what we're currently doing in a lot better way.
What was it like back then? Was it ChatGPT or was it something different?
No, it's sort of like what's called machine learning.
Oh, yeah.
So it's more, what are the trends? What's the history of the trends, and how does it help us predict the future? So we use it a lot for sort of workforce planning. We knew what the jobs we'd done over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and then we can predict out where we need our people around the country, or we can predict out how to essentially automate our marketing.
Got it.
And it was sort of each sector of the business, we'd look with machine learning of how we could apply that.
Right. And so, sorry, how long ago was that? About 3 years ago?
We were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5, yeah.
So you've had 3 years of pretty intensive AI,
Yep.
hands-on, practical use case,
Yeah.
fully into it.
Yeah, fully into it. So like with machine learning, it's a wee bit more technical and it's a wee bit harder to understand. And then in early 22, when ChatGPT or ChatGPT 3.5 came out, where everyone understood how easy it was to use, that's where things started to go a wee bit exponential in regards to our learning and the efficiencies we could get for it.
Yeah. And then fast forward to relatively recent day, Agentic AI kicks off. When was that? Late last year?
Late last year. So yeah. Agentic Intelligence got started in April of last year officially. So about a few years ago, I got a really good chairman who came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, this AI thing's real. It's time for you to step away from senior move managers and put in or promote someone internally into our GM role who's doing a good job, and then to spin this out as a separate business.
Yeah. Because were you managing senior
I was GM at the time.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, cool. And so where are you at today?
So today I've got
February.
February, we've got 7 staff at the moment.
Yeah.
Scaling really, really quickly. I got really lucky. Obviously, I knew Brett from a previous engagement we did in an incubator together.
Oh, yeah.
For Christchurch NZ.
Oh, yeah.
And then randomly he decides to have his meetings at a cafe that's close to senior managers.
Oh, yeah.
And we started chatting about this whole AI thing. And then I inceptioned him to decide to help him come across and be a business partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. Like having had Brett on the show and, like getting to know Brett over the last couple of years, it's cool to see you guys come together in a business where you've got similar but different skill sets, right?
I think that's the key to business is like if you're doing the same things or got the same skill sets, you'll be tripping over each other.
I think so.
It'll lead to a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I look at Brett and also look at Paul and senior managers, we might sort of like sound the same, but at the core we are completely different. And that's the only way it's going to work.
The yin yang.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about, I guess, having not done a solo business, you've been in partnerships with the two now. What are your thoughts on that, partnerships versus solo?
Yeah, solo I think is really, really hard. I've observed a few people that we know do the solo stuff. I'm probably just not built that way. Like as you know, I don't have the full emotional range of a normal human. So it's always good to balance me out with someone who's quite happy-going and lucky.
Yeah.
And it's also just so much better to bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
And to go through the shit together.
Yeah, totally.
And that way you can laugh and look back and go, laugh at the first product you shipped, laugh at the first job you did together.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the relationships matter. And going through the war of it all and looking back and still being friends. Like with Paul, we're still really good friends 9 years after business, which is something that's quite rare.
That is rare.
You always hear about shareholders breaking up or having a messy divorce, you could say.
Yeah.
And it always comes back to partnerships, and like nothing else in your life matters if you don't have good partnerships. Like if your life partner at home isn't good and you're not communicating, your business isn't going well.
100% agree.
And vice versa.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, isn't it?
It is, and it's just so much easier to take someone along the journey and have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great mindset. So practically speaking, I had this on my notes, right? I'm like, all right, this is like such a hot topic at the moment. I've been using AI a little bit. I think probably, I don't know what the stats are in terms of usage currently. Like, what would you say if
It's quite low.
survey like 100 businesses? How many do you think are
For
using
businesses, I'd say it's for less than 20% are allowing people to use to use ChatGPT or an AI within their business. And the reason being is management doesn't understand the value and they're always risk averse. But if you actually look at the people in the business using it, who aren't supposed to be using but actually are, it'll be a lot higher.
Like on an individual basis?
On an individual basis, yeah.
Right.
And if I'm an employee, I would be quite selfish. I would pay for ChatGPT, for example, for $20 US a month, and I would get the AI to do everything it can of my role as an employee.
Totally. Yeah.
And like we, even early on, we went to say Seek and we saw people advertising for a job, and we would email them and say, hey, this is how you do this job with AI. So you don't need to hire that person.
That's clever.
And that's how we got their initial attention for things.
Yeah.
But it's a tool that everyone can benefit from. I saw a good study coming out recently that said that if you use an AI or ChatGPT, your IQ points at work go up by 20.
Wow. That's a big lift.
It is. Because if you think about it, it's just a person sitting next to you that you can bounce ideas off to get to an answer faster.
Yes.
And it helps action.
Yeah.
And action's where you get the real feedback.
That's it. Yeah. Some of those prompts can just cut through the noise very well.
Yeah, well, it just helps you reorganize your brain for thinking.
Yes.
And I've met a lot of people that are great entrepreneurs that can talk like this and have good ideas, but when it comes to the written word or to motivate their staff via email, which sometimes they have to because they're distributed, they really struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's helped to connect those two together.
Yeah, I've definitely found that, like a lot of entrepreneurs have got distinct skill sets, but yet quite weak in some areas. I find that people are not generally level across the board. And I think ChatGPT or AI helps, I guess, fill some of those gaps in.
Yeah, and you can think about it as an individual. If you know what you're bad at, you can outsource that to ChatGPT and go, hey, look, I'm not very detailed orientated. So when I put in a prompt, make sure there's a lot of detail to help essentially make up for my weaknesses.
Yeah. The big thing on my mind is, where do you go from after ChatGPT? Like, what's the next rung on the ladder after that?
So you can do what's called custom GPTs, and that's like a small sliver of tasks. And if you think about a job, it's a sum of tasks. So an example could be create a custom GPT to look at your credit card expenses and create a pie chart. So you take your reconciliation report from zero, you put it into your custom GPT, and it outputs a graph. And that way, straight away, you get a snapshot of that credit card. And you can send it to your staff and go, hey, this is your expenses. This is why it's, these are outside the norm. Please explain.
Right.
So that process would have taken a day to do for, say, 8 credit cards, but it'd be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's how do we increase the work per unit of time?
And so what's the benefit of using a custom GPT versus just feeding that into the normal window?
So a custom GPT is a very narrow task that can be done over and over again. So as opposed to putting in, say, a custom prompt each time, you can just create it once. And then you can go back to it all the time.
Right.
So it's on the left-hand side, you can hit Explore GPTs if you're on your computer.
Yeah.
And then on the right-hand side, there's a Create Custom GPT, and you just talk to it like a person of what you want to create.
Right, yeah.
And that way you can actually think about it as tasks. You can essentially have all those tasks build together on each other.
Right.
So if you can write on a whiteboard what your workflow is, you can start to create custom GPTs of what that workflow is and then replicate it. And you'll find that you'll 10x, savings in time.
Interesting.
And that's the goal, is how do you make the real key decision makers more efficient and effective? Because 9 times out of 10, they are the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And we see that in bigger companies, whereas a decision might take 2 weeks to make because they go through all these committees, which is just ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so tell me about the business. Is it around training? Is it around implementation? Is it around project? Is it around customization? And give us the rundown.
Yeah, the 3 ways to think about it is sort of training. So for the staff to understand what it is and what it isn't. And then we've got pilot projects. So take where we've got a bottleneck within the business and we'll build tools around how AI can help. And then platforms. So we usually partner with great entrepreneurs in different subsectors, and we create an entire platform for them to change that industry completely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so if someone's listening to this, they're in business and they're like, shit, I've got to get into this. Like I'm getting left behind.
Yep.
Or if I don't do it, someone else will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it seems like a no-brainer to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any downside, limitations, risk? Like what are they?
Yeah, so the biggest risk is if you're putting something into a free version of ChatGPT, you're the product, or any AI that's free. Anything that's free, you're the product. They're using your data and so my suggestion would be get a workplace account, say a Teams account, and that way your data is siloed. And
Right.
then you can experiment in a safe way. And I would put in things that I would just use it as your first protocol for problem solving and get into that mindset, and then you can see how it can amplify what you do.
Right.
Sometimes people get a wee bit confused about what to ask ChatGPT or an AI. It's not like Google where it's question and answer. You can take on personas. So let's say it's a salesperson. You say that you are like Alex Hormozy, a salesperson. I've got these issues. Please help me understand. And then do it in the domain you really understand and see how good the output actually is.
Yeah.
And then once you come back after your existential crisis, then you can start to use it in a lot more efficient and effective way. Because I think that people look at the outputs, they get really scared about it's going to take my job and what am I going to do? Where that's not really reality. It's a tool to amplify what you do. It's a time machine. It saves you time.
Yeah. Yeah. I used it recently. I was like, overlay the, from the book, 10x is easier than 2x. Please overlay that ethos to my business and how to apply it with some practical next steps.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like even simple stuff because it has like a memory function, so it remembers what you say.
Yeah.
And like if you're not being as truthful to yourself as you should be, you can ask it like, based on my previous interactions, what aren't I doing, and what should I be doing?
Yeah.
And actually get an honest feedback without conflict of other people of how things are going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be my harshest critic.
Exactly. Yeah. Just get ideas so that you know how to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's the theme is that action matters and speed matters. So it's just that tool to make sure that you can be a wee bit better.
Totally. What's your predictions for the next 12 months for I guess, the industry, but your business?
Yeah. So for us, we'll grow pretty quick. We're seeing a lot of work in the humanoid robot space. We're dealing with a company in the construction space where we'll be building the first home with humanoid robots in the next 18 months.
Wow.
I think there'll be more humanoid robots than people by 2040. And I think we'll have sort of more progress in the next 12 months to see how lean and mean a business can be. But what that's going to mean is a lot more competition. So you can run, if you've got a 100-person business and all you do is sort of trade knowledge, you can probably run that business with 10 people now. But it doesn't mean that 90 people sit and are unemployed. Those 90 people are going to start their own businesses. So you're going to see a lot more competition. And that if you aren't using these tools, I don't see how you're going to compete in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, isn't it? Like it's hard. It's just hard to predict how fast it will move. That's probably the variable, isn't it?
Yeah, well, in my head, I think we'll have more progress in the next 20 years than the last 2000. And I think that we'll have a great opportunity to do some really cool things. But it's how we explain to our staff how we're using this tool and how we bring them along the journey.
Yeah.
Because if you try to build it, say at the head office level inside a black box, and then the next day you just deploy it, your staff aren't engaged, and you have what we call the immune response. The staff says, no, don't want to touch it. I hate you guys, you're trying to take my job.
Right.
So it's the most important part is how we bring people along the journey.
Yeah, right.
And how do we redefine their value? And it's usually this. It's communicating to their own staff how to train them, or it's communicating to customers on what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, well put. What about Agentic? What do you think you'll be at in 12 months' time?
I don't think we'll really need too many more staff past 10.
Yeah.
In regards to our capacity of work, we have a few thousand agents that do tasks for us in our background, especially with software. I think that you'll be able to do, I think software will become a bit of a commodity over the next sort of 24 months, where everyone will be able to code up their own ideas or own apps, however they see fit.
It's interesting how the assumption earlier on was that lower skilled jobs are going to be the ones that are replaced, whereas almost the inverse of that, right?
It will be, yeah. The more specialised, the more niche you are for exchanging knowledge. If you think about exchanging knowledge, it's just you're trying to communicate to someone else a different narrative. And I might not be the best way to talk to you about something because I don't know the way you learn. But an AI that you've been interacting with for, say, 4 years by then will know you inside and out.
Yeah.
So it'll know the best way to communicate ideas to you.
Yeah.
So the more niche you are, the more at risk you are if you're not using these tools to scale.
Yeah. And I guess simultaneously working on your people-to-people skills.
Communication, resilience, and leadership. Because if you think about it, we're going to have all these AI agents doing work on our behalf. If we actually don't know how to manage people, we don't really know how to manage an AI agent.
That's a good point.
And if we are really, really sort of loosey and goosey with our tasks, like you say a staff member, go do this, and that's all the guidance you give them, you can't be upset with the results you get with the work you didn't put in.
That's it.
Like, same with an AI agent. If you don't give it clear goals and tasks, your output's going to be pretty poor.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. It's the art of the prompt, right? Articulating with precision what you're actually looking for.
That's the funny part, isn't it? It comes down to how well you can speak English.
Words.
Yeah, words. Or if you're like me and words are hard, you can always just ask ChatGPT, this is what I want to do and achieve.
Yeah.
Create me a prompt for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Copy, new chat, put it in, and it works.
Have you got a favorite couple of prompts that you've discovered or landed
Not
on?
really. I'm big into the voice at the moment. So big into talking to it when
Yeah.
I'm driving to understand new and novel concepts.
Yeah, that's handy, isn't it?
Well, it just helps my learning the way I think through things.
Yeah.
As opposed to always reading something. And I can get a fair bit of work organised and sorted before I get to the office. And that sort of that dead time where I've got to be doing something else.
Yes. Yeah. I've been doing the same. It's really good.
Yeah.
The one prompt that comes to mind, though, is the harshest critic. Based on what you know about me.
Yeah, harshest critic is a good prompt to understand what's going on with yourself. But I always go to, if I 10x this business, what's the first thing that falls over? Because that's probably the bottleneck. And if I haven't identified that as a leader first, then I look at myself and go, hey, am I actually understanding what my business is?
Yeah. Do you think we'll see do you think we'll see a lot of AI agencies popping up as well?
Like with any new technology, there will be a lot that will pop up and then pop back down, but that's just the normal cycle of business, which is a good thing. You know, competition in the market is always good. Ultimately, it drives down prices, but you will have the high-end and low-cost providers like you do in any technology.
Totally. Yeah. And when do you think we're going to start seeing these humanoid
robots
bots around in New Zealand?
In New Zealand, I would say by the end of this year, I'll be shocked if we don't see one walking down the main streets of Christchurch.
Really?
Yeah. So they cost about between $30,000 and $60,000 New Zealand.
Right.
Getting out of China. China's doing a great job with humanoid robots. 18 to 25, smallest demographic ever entering New Zealand's workforce. There's no one to do the work.
Wow.
The only other real alternative is either shrink as a country or to use these robots to help do meaningful work. Yeah.
Yeah, right. End of the year.
End of the year. And I may manufacture and make that happen personally.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What's that latest brand that's just come out with a new release? The Chinese one.
We've got Unitree, which is the cheaper alternative, which is doing some really good work. There's a release this morning of robots doing work within factories. For BMW, for example, they do a lot of the parts, placing the parts of different stamps, and that's all done by a robot.
Yeah.
That really sort of mundane work that there isn't actually anyone to do.
Yeah.
That still needs to be done.
Yeah, right. Already, I guess, even just like on a simpler level, seeing these robotic lawnmowers and stuff around, right? Like it's happening.
It's happening, and it's now just cheap enough to do it because they learn off imitation learning.
Yeah.
Like for the training data we get, all we're doing is we're learning how they use their hands to swing a hammer.
Yeah.
And we're taking that as an imitation learning, and then we're putting it into like a virtual environment. Like think about like GTA, like the PlayStation game, Grand Theft Auto. It's just going through a whole lot of different simulations to learn what it's like in the real world, and then going back into the brain of the actual robot itself.
Yeah. Back to that question around practical use case. So after you've been using ChatGPT for a while, you've developed a custom GPT for yourself, or 2 or 3. Then what? What's the next step on the ladder after that?
So you'll probably get into a thing called like Make or N8N, which is an automation platform, which is like low or no code. So you would have worked out how these custom GPTs tie together, all the thinking parts of the agent, and then you'll go to a platform like that and you'll do a self-service where you'll think about your business process and you'll actually just replicate it completely with a make.com or an N8N.
Right.
So essentially it takes a custom GPT out of ChatGPT and you can put it into like your CRM or whatever way that your customer process is.
Right. So that's the platform that connects various software. Right.
Yeah, connects various software, or like a Zapier that people would have heard of as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what people are using to say, like, sort through emails and draft responses.
Yeah, sort through emails and draft. But even saying that, like, do we really think that we'll be emailing people in 3 or 4 years?
Hopefully not.
Probably not. I don't at the moment. So I've got an AI agent that reads all my emails, and if they're within a certain threshold, it just replies automatically.
Right.
I really want to be the person going and sending 7 emails back and forth to say, when can I meet for a coffee?
No.
Is that a hard problem to solve?
Oh, it's definitely not like high IQ needed, right?
Not at all.
No.
So like tools like an Innate will do that all for you. And they've got some really good videos on their websites that walk you through.
Yeah.
And it'll take a few cups of coffee in a few hours, but you'll get an MVP or a minimum viable product pretty quick.
Yeah. What about someone that's listening to this and they're in business and they're like, look, I see the value here. Like I can see this being a thing. I can't really be bothered learning. I'd rather engage with someone to help me. Do you think, regardless of the approach, do you think it's also helpful to have some broad level knowledge of it?
Broad level, but also the future. Because sometimes we're in our businesses so much that we've got our horse collars on. We're only looking at our day-to-day and we don't see the bigger picture. So it always helps to get a company like us to come in and see a third-party perspective.
Yeah.
And to actually map out, like in a non-conflict way, what we're actually doing and where the value is. Because previously we thought the value was in hiring people that have a lot of domain expertise, whereas that's not the value in the future. So how do we transition those people into different roles? Or how do we make sure we only build it once, as opposed to building it with every little tick and jive with new release of new models?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because these new models are coming out sort of every 3 months.
Yeah. What about the next step up from Innate in? Is then a custom
Something custom,
situation?
Sort of a custom platform build. So we'll go through the entire business, we'll map out all the processes, and then we will create an entire new workflow that's empowered by AI to make sure that we save the business owner a lot of time.
Yeah, this is
a lot
cool.
of efficiency.
Yeah, this is so good.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, how do we make something that was quite difficult in the past, and how do we automate it all so we spend more valuable time talking to people?
Yeah.
Because that's all that matters in business. If a customer feels understood and their needs are met, they don't really care how the thing's made in the kitchen.
That's right.
They just care about the output.
Exactly.
And that's how ruthless business is. They care about output.
Totally. Yeah. I think we're seeing that already on every level, though. People are just wanting simplicity, low friction.
Yeah, well, like the customer expectations will change. Like for a lawyer, for example, I don't go to lawyers and say, hey, I need this. I get AI to write it, and I send it to them and say, hey, what's wrong with this? And the reason being, it saves me a lot of time. We had a competition with some employment lawyers. It was me and the AI versus them. They're all the partners of the firm, and the AI won. And we could do more work than their entire firm could do.
Wow.
So it changes where the value is, but I can now use that AI, do all my legal work, send it to them. They can cast their eye over and check to make sure they're happy. But unfortunately, their bill's a lot less than what it was for them.
No doubt.
But if they don't adapt, they'll get wrecked.
Yeah, I guess there's certain industries that are particularly prone to change here.
All professional services and all sort of back office processes will
Yeah.
get a lot of squeeze unless they adapt pretty quick.
Yeah. Is there currently a market-leading AI consultancy in New Zealand?
Not really.
There's
There's a few that have tried to be public and then were sort of broken off. Everyone's sort of vying for what is going to be the one thing that actually generates a lot of revenue and a lot of hype. A lot have tried to be really, really high level, but when you're trying to educate the market and sell to the market at the same time, it's a very, very difficult process. So we're actually trying a different approach. We're going really heavy into voice. So we've got what we call voice agents, where people will call up and book in an appointment with someone. It could be a mechanic. They call, they don't realize it's not a person, even though we disclose it's an AI assistant, and they work out how much for a Warren of Fitness, can you do it next Tuesday?
Yeah.
And the AI books them in. Gets it all
So
sorted.
good.
Just so that the person that owns the mechanic's place can be a lot more efficient, a lot more effective of fixing cars, as opposed to the admin process, because those roles are really, really hard to hire for.
Yeah. What would be the lag on that voice agent?
So at the moment, because we get all the voice recordings and when we do the demos, probably about half the person on the end of the phone has to be reminded it's not a person. So it's better than and can understand 190 different languages. So it's a better experience than with people right now.
And I suppose it's just improving all the time as well. It's getting more fluent, faster,
It's going at a double exponential rate
accurate.
each year,
Yeah.
and the costs are coming down 10x
Yeah.
each year.
That's a really nice practical use case. Is that something that you could easily-ish set up for someone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an easy way to scale
Yeah.
through that process. And that's an easy entry point because everyone understands how hard it is to find a great customer service person that understands voice.
Yeah.
And it's such a visceral reaction. And like we've talked about in regards to the education space, we've got sort of voice AI teachers where we didn't realize how much of a gap there was in regards to learning ability. So we created voice agents to help educate students outside of class, but also help the parents. So the parents can call our voice agent and say, my kid's learning chemistry, he's learning chemical bonds. Can you give me some ideas about how to help him or her understand it better?
Wow.
And it just means that the teacher also gets a feed of what their students are learning and how well they actually understood what's going on.
Yeah.
But that same model can be applied to business. You can have all these voice AI agents talking to your customers, and the GM or CEO can get a live picture of the state of the business. Are we getting good reviews or bad reviews, or what they might need to jump in and intervene with?
I love it. Just mindful of time here, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts, suggestions, jokes?
No jokes. No, like I said, don't have the emotional range for jokes. More is just action. Just do.
Just do it.
Play.
Just try it.
Just pay for the $20 a month version so your data's safe.
Yeah.
On a Teams account or a workplace account, but just try and replace it for every question that you'd usually ask yourself or your staff to see what the output's like, and then just keep experimenting, keep doing. Like this technology is not going anywhere, and it's smarter than 99% of people in the world right now. So it's only going to get better.
Yeah. So get involved, get the paid subscription, trial it, figure out where that could plug the gaps, and then get in touch with Agentic to go to the next level.
Yeah.
That's the move.
I think so, mate. And give me a call like 027 310 5424. Probably the first person to give out my number on the podcast.
Probably.
Yeah. So give me a bell. We'll sort something out.
Is that you or the
That's me, mate.
agent?
That's me.
That's you.
You guys can judge.
Oh, so good. Hey, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Always.
We'll see you soon.